Okay. Either I'm going to have to start talking faster or I'm just going to have to take my time because my brain doesn't work real fast. And I'm being Southern, I have the Southern drawl and I can't um, move very quick. I'm real slow. So I'm sorry. Um, we lived in this little small town for a little while. And my mother, I remember her fussing at him because she wanted to move to a bigger town. And we ended up moving um, more central part of Alabama. And they bought a house, and that home we lived in it for until I got married. So I remember we, I've got videos of us in this home, and my stepdad worked really hard getting the yard done, and trying to groom it. And he worked out of town a lot, and when he was home, he worked really hard. And you know, we had a good life. We got what we needed to survive. He was a good provider, and he just didn't. He wasn't really a father to me. Um, my mother and him had a child, and he was my half brother. And he was treated a lot differently than we were. And I begrudged it. I was very resentful um, because he got away with so much. Um, we couldn't do anything without getting beat. Um, I mean, we had to learn to do chores very, very early, and which that's fine. I don't, I think kids should do chores. They need to learn responsibility, but she would make us do things that was just not, you know, normal. And but that's all she knew. She was raised that way, and she had a mental illness herself, and uh, she she had her troubles, and she had a fiery temper. And when she got mad, she took it out on us. She didn't take it out on hers and my stepdad's child. She took it out on her other three children. So, anyway, we tried to do everything right. We tried to keep things calm down. If she said do it, we did it. Um, I remember being in elementary school, maybe fourth, fifth grade, and I really was struggling. Um, I had a hard time concentrating on what the teacher would say, and I would get in so much trouble because um, I didn't want to participate. I didn't want to stand in front of the class and do work on the chalkboard, and so I always would take a 0 before I would get in front of a classroom to give a report or whatever. So my grades were always terrible. I barely passed my classes. My mother and stepdad never got involved in um, anything that was going on in our school. We were on our own. If we didn't get it, we didn't get it. She was not educated. She had a ninth grade education and she could not read. I don't know how she made it to the ninth grade, but she's never been able to read hardly at all. So, um, but when I was younger, I didn't understand. All these other children, their parents came to the school and would, be active and do things with their kids, and my mother just never come to the school for anything, not even a party. And I always felt bad about that and embarrassed. So when she, um, when I went to junior high, uh, I started being interested in boys. And there was some boys that liked me, and I would be more interested in the boys than I was schoolwork. So, but I never was alone with the boy until I got much older. Anyway, I didn't do well in school. I really believe now that I had a learning disability, and I never was checked for that. So my grades suffered. I suffered because it would embarrass me. I was not a popular child. I always wanted to fit in and eat lunch with the cool girls and um, be involved in choir or the band or sports. I wanted to be like all the other girls, but I wasn't. So I struggled very, very um, badly. And anyway, we got, well, actually, I'll go back a little bit. We started going to a church that had a wonderful preacher, and the church grew, and we had lots and lots of young people that were going to that church. And it was mainly because he had 6 children, and they ranged, goodness, they were like doorsteps. So this church that we went to, when I got old enough, I was in their youth group, and I went on youth trips, and we would do things. We would go to Florida. We went to Pennsylvania one year. We would go to Six Flags and do a lot of different things. So that's where I fit in, was with the church. And they didn't believe in wearing pants at one time. You didn't go to movies. The guys' hair had to be above their ears. The girls' dresses had to be at their knees, and it was almost like a uh, well, the churches have changed a lot. All the churches now are so different. Even the most spiritual churches, they don't care if you wear pants, and they don't care if you wear shorts. Back then you couldn't. So anyway, I didn't care anything about any of that stuff. My mother, we wore pants at home, and we, went to movies, and we did what we wanted to do. We weren't going to let anybody dictate to us, how to live. So, um, in this youth group, um, my friend, well, I had lots of girlfriends, and they went to school with me, and we were in this little group now because we were church girls. And so, we hung out at school and we hung out together at church. So, in the neighborhood where we lived, we had lots of kids. We would play sports. Most of the time, it was baseball. We would play out in the yard. I was a tomboy. My sister stayed in the house. She liked to read. My mother worked outside of the home, so I was the oldest. And when we got our chores done, we would go outside and we would play. And my ex-husband, aunt, lived down the street from us, and he was always there with them. I think, he stayed a lot with them. And we had a lot of boys in the neighborhood, and they would come down to my house because we weren't allowed to leave the yard. So they would all congregate at my house, and we would play in the front yard. We played so much ball that we had a diamond, shaped trail in our front yard. We wore the grass out playing. And he would always pick me to be on his team. And he was the oldest out of all of them, and he kept things under control. He, would, when the boys would start yanging and, fussing and everything, he would kind of take charge and, calm things down. So I really liked him. And, but I was, a little bit younger than him, so he was not interested in me. He was interested in somebody else at that time, which that's fine. He was still young. I mean, I think I was maybe 13, 14, and he was maybe 16, 17. So anyway, we played and had the best summer, and, we go back to school. I hated school. I hated the way I felt in school. I carried around so much anxiety that I just, it was horrible. And so high school ended up being pretty bad too. Junior high was bad, and then high school was bad. My mother still didn't get involved. I had more responsibilities on me since she was working, and there were times I would have to come home from school, get everybody, to cleaning, get dinner started, and I didn't have time to do homework, which I really didn't want to do homework, but I didn't have time to do all these things. So I suffered because of that. And I suffered in a lot of ways. So, anyway, um, I didn't want to get in trouble, so I tried to please my mother and do what she told me to do. But then when my report card came in, I would get in so much trouble and I would get grounded, and then it just seemed like it never ended. So anyway, he graduated from high school and he worked. He started working when he was like 16, I think, and he worked when he was in high school and whatever. And he joined the National Guard, and he was gone to summer camp. We started dating, and he gave me a promise ring. And everybody in our church, we had probably 100 young people, and everybody, had a boyfriend or a girlfriend, and they coupled up, and when they would graduate from high school, they would get married. Um, a few of them went to college, and then, you know, most of them got married and then went to school. So he and I, we followed suit. Um, my biggest thing was, you know, even in high school, I was getting beat for anything or grounded. He and I could be going on a date, and I would get grounded at the last minute, and I can't go. I'd have to tell him when he got there, I can't go. I got in trouble for not cleaning off the countertop, or for not sweeping the kitchen floor, or not doing the dishes right. I was always getting in trouble for something. So, he and I broke up a few times because he was tired of that. But, you know, um, there was a couple there that we were best friends with, and we would all go out together, double dated back then, and we would do our little double dating, and they got married before we did, and they were married in December, I think, or November, and we got married March. Um, but we were broke up one time, and I started dating this other guy that was in college. He played football in college, and my parents were overjoyed because I was dating a college guy that played football. And so they left me home one weekend while they went out of town. Everybody went out of town except for me because I had a date with this guy. And I was going to spend the night with a friend of mine. He found out that my parents were gone. So he pressured me um, into going back to our house. And I had a problem with saying no. I still have a problem with saying no. Anyway, he took advantage of me, which um, was my fault. I should have been more responsible, but I was a junior in high school, and I let him um, come into our home, and well, you can imagine what happened. Anyway, um, I fell head over heels over him, and he dropped me, you know, real quick because I started calling him at school, and his coach told him that we were getting too serious, and told told him that he didn't need to be involved with anybody. So he broke things off, and it broke my heart. So I had written a letter to him and had it in one of my drawers in my bedroom, and my mother found it, and she was furious with me. And before she found that letter, um, my other boyfriend, which we were broke up, he and I had started talking again, and we were trying to work things out. And so my mother told me that if I wanted to get back with him, she didn't have a problem. and that she would even, she even told us we could get married. So I told him that what she said. And so that was, I want to say, close to Christmas. And my grades were terrible in school. I hated school. I hated going to school. I would skip school. And so I quit. I told my mom I just could not do it. I wanted to quit. And that didn't go over very well, but I started working full time and I had a job and I was going to pay for all my things for my wedding. So we ended up planning our wedding for March, and so I was happy. And I bought my own wedding dress and started, paying for things. And we had a large church wedding because we belonged to a large church, and we everybody was having big weddings. So I had, I think, 6 bridesmaids, and he had 6 groomsmen, and we did the whole thing, and it was really pretty and all that. The only thing I didn't like about my wedding was he picked his own tux out, and he was always, he likes flashy things, and he picked out a crushed velvet maroon tuxedo, and it was ugly as crap, but he liked it. So those were my colors, was maroon, pink and maroon, or pink or blush and maroon, whatever. But anyway, we got married, and we didn't have a long honeymoon. We had to go back to work that next week. We got married on a Friday, and he was back at work on Monday, which we didn't mind. We were happy we were going to be together, so we didn't mind at all. So anyway, we went to a little place. Well, we went and stayed in a motel our first night, and then it was about 45 minutes from our town, and then we went somewhere else, and we were back in our little trailer. I'll tell you about that in the next vlog. I've got to go for now.